Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi israhli sadari wa yassirli amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli wa yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. Amma ba'du. The honorable examiners of this proposal seminar examination, Mr. Idam Syaputra MED and Mr. Nuardi MED. So in this special occasion, I'm Riana Nadia Pohan, a student of English Education Department, Faculty of Education, State Islamic University of Sultan Syarif Qasim Riau. So first of all, I would like to thank to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala for giving us the health to be able to pretending today's proposal seminar, and then I would like to thank to the examiners who have given me an opportunity to present about my thesis proposal with the title "The Correlation Between Listening Comprehension and Speaking Abilities of Students at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru." Well, my thesis proposal consists of 3 chapters. The first chapter about the introduction, and then the second chapter about the theoretical framework, and the last chapter about the research methodology. So now we're going to talk about the first chapter. It's discuss about introduction. So in this globalization era, English is such a need to learn it because the English is a language of trade, education, and technology. So in this country itself, English is learned as a foreign language. So the process of foreign language learning starts from listening. Listening has an important role in receive the information. And what comes after listening is speaking. Speaking often becomes the icon of student success in learning language. Now, now we're going to discussing about the problem of the research. Well, there are 3 problems they identify in this research. The first is what makes students have difficulty in speaking, and then what should be improved so that students have better speaking ability, and the last problems is about what is the effect of listening comprehension on student speaking ability. Because there are some problem in this research, it is important for the researcher to limit the problem in order to pay more attention, and it is important for the researcher to limit the problem in order to pay more attention to the specific problem. So the researcher will focus on the correlation between listening comprehension and speaking abilities, and also the factors that make students have difficulties to mastering listening and speaking in learning English language at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru. For the formulation of the problems, the formulation is there any significant correlation between listening comprehension and speaking abilities? So now, talking about the objective and significance of the research, the objective of this research is to find out the significant correlation between listening comprehension and speaking abilities, and then the significance of this research. The researcher hope that this research will give valid information, and then the researcher also hopes that the result of this research will become input to English teacher and English learning for their teaching and learning. There are 2 reasons for choosing this title. The first reason is the title of this research is relevant to the researcher status as the students of English Education Department, and then the title of this research really need to be researched because there is still a lack of student interest in learning English, and teaching methods are effectiveless and difficult to attract student attention at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru. Well, now we moving to discussing chapter 2 about the theoretical framework. So first we discuss about listening. To listen well, a student have to comprehend the meaning of the spoken language. To comprehend means to understanding completely, not only knowing the meaning of the spoken language, but also knowing what the context of the spoken language. Richard stated that listening comprehension is the process of understanding speech in the first or second language. In another statement, Richard also said that listening and listening comprehension are synonymous. So, from the meaning of two terms, listening and comprehension, lead the researcher to define the listening comprehension is the way to understanding completely the spoken language through listening and then making up the meaning of the language being spoken by the speakers. Well, next we're talking about the types of listening comprehension. There are two types. The first type is one-way listening or transactional listening. So this type refers to the of listening some teaching materials that given by the teachers. Next, the second type is about two-way listening or interactional listening. This type refers to the daily communication. There are two processes of listening comprehension. The first process is top-down process and then bottom-up process. Now talking about the problem in listening comprehension, there are two problems. The first problem is about new sound system and then problems in new vocabularies. Well, the testing of listening comprehension, the best testing on listening comprehension is the tape recording. Well, now we're going to talking about the speaking. Regarding to the speaking of four skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing, speaking seems intuitively the most important. Speaking is not a great skill. It can stand alone because some complex activities or sub-skills such as vocabulary mastery, grammar competence, comprehension, input of language, phonology, and pronunciation are included. Talking about the ability of the speaking, well, talking about the ability of speaking, would state that speaking effectively depends very much on the speaker's ability to interact with an interlocutor. And also, leader state that communicative competence is measured according to the degree of fluency with the spoken language, but it also includes comprehension of the language in real-life situation. So referring to the statement of Woods and Linder, it can be concluded that the ability of speaking is the ability to speak and interact with the interlocutor with fluently and comprehensively. Now we're talking about process of oral production skill. There are three processes. The first is conceptualization, and then words level, and the last one is articulation. There are some problems in speaking. First is inadequate vocabulary, and then inadequate control of grammar, and third is lack of fluency. Next problems is shyness, and the last one problem is lack of encouragement. But the testing of the speaking ability, the testing of speaking ability must valid and reliable. Well, now we're discussing about the correlation between listening comprehension and students and speaking ability. So listening has the contribution and correlation to build speaking ability. Listening is the language skill used most often and the channel through which students get much of their language input. So when students get exposure to listening, they will automatically imitate and say what they have heard. So listening is a gate that will get students to speak. Thus, listening is the way of comprehending speech. The messages that are proposed are the spoken language which is produced by the speakers. So that is why listening comprehension correlates to speaking abilities. Now we're talking about the chapter 3, research methodology. So this research was conducted through quantitative method, and the design is correlational study. Sanghaji state, this is refers to the Sanghaji state that correlational research is a type of research which certain a characteristic of the problem of the relationship or correlation at least two variables. Next, about the location and the time of the research. The location of this research at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru, and the time of this research is on February 2024. So next, about the subject and object of this research. The subject of this research is the first grade at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru. Then the objective of this research is correlation between listening comprehension and speaking abilities at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru. Talking about the population in this research were one class of first grade at SMK Abdurrab Pekanbaru. It consists of 20 students. They are 12 males and 8 females. The instrument of this research is documentation of listening and test of speaking. Well, now we're talking about the technique of data of collecting data. The first is documentation, and the second technique is speaking test, and the last one is taking video. In analyzing the data, the researcher uses correlation product moment, which developed by core person. So because the researcher wants to find out the influence which is related to the correlational study. Well, honorable examiners, I have present all the content of my thesis proposal. So that's all for my explanation or presentation. Thank you so much for your nice attention. And the last, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.